So I was telling Electro, hey man, you can't do that around the pool. Uh-oh, my Spidey sense is tingling. I got a show to you. I'll catch you later. Ah, Winnebago! I'm swinging here, I'm swinging! Whoa, low bridge! Crap! Gwen's gonna be mad!
Here comes the Spider-Man. Is he strong? Listen, bud.
Hey, I love that joint! Great bagels!
Swing from a thread. Take a look.
Sorry, my bad.
There goes the Spider-Man. In the chill of night, at the scene of a crime, like a streak of light, he arrives just in time.
Glad that wasn't me. What is this, a Flag Day parade? Hey, it's my friends the X-Men! Mystique, Storm, Rogue, Cyclops, and Wolverine! What's up, guys?
Wherever there's a hang, you'll find a Spider-Man.
Hey! Nick Iandolo here for another crazy episode of NSFC Update. This is the quick and clean companion show to Nick's Sci-Fi Corner. Yeah! Today, I'm going to give you the skinny on the second installment of the newly rebooted web-slinging superhero series, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And then, we'll check out the big mutant time-traveling team-up superhero flick, X-Men Days of Future Past! Haha! And finally, I've got some big news, really big news to share, so let's get started! Well, he's back! Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man! Haha! And only he ain't as friendly in this sequel to The Amazing Spider-Man. Sadly, this one only gets a yellow sun. I was actually toying with the idea of handing out the first White Dwarf, but I have a soft spot for Spider-Man, and the on-screen chemistry between Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, and Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy is awesome. You really believe that they are in love and are going through a real stormy relationship. That's really the glue that holds this otherwise bloated and meandering superhero film together. You see, the problem I have with this film is what I call the kitchen sink syndrome. The writers, particularly the Alex Kurtzman and Roberto Orci of Transformers and New Trek fame, among other hired guns, that is, more writers, because more writers always make screenplays better, right? Wrong! They just seem to invariably make more of a mess. Gone are the days when you had one solid writer write a damn good solid script and they stuck to it. Nope, not in today's Hollywood blockbuster world. And what you get, of course, has been could have been a great sequel to an already decent reboot of one of the most iconic superhero characters in the Marvel comic universe. Heck, Spider-Man is practically a household name. Anyway, the writers and Mark Webb, the director of 500 Days of Summer fame and the first Amazing Spider-Man film, feel the need to stuff this turkey with as much carbohydrate-laden filler as possible. Everything from the mystery of what happened to Peter's parents, origin stories of 3 villains, Electro, Green Goblin, and Rhino, with nods to even more baddies, the Man in Black and his secret organization creating even more villains than Oscorp, a bunch of nascent subplots for the secondary characters like Aunt May, Norman Osborn, and the deceased Captain Stacy, and only a glancing mention of the Daily Bugle and J. Jonah Jameson. Oh, and the last one is what really bothers me. Here's why. I'm all for not touching the Bugle and Jameson in the first film, so we could totally establish the characters. But now it's time to bugle it up! I mean, come on! You know, they're gonna wait for the third film to bring in one of Spider-Man's most vocal critics, who happens to be his boss? At least in the fizzled out Sam Raimi Spider-Man films, we got a great Jameson in the form of J.K. Simmons. But I digress. With plots and subplots flying around more than Spidey's web-slinging, it's hard to keep track of what the hell is actually going on. And the only constant in this film is Peter and Gwen, and it's pretty intense, and that's all I can say. Kudos to the director and writers for at least keeping true to their story arc. And I'm cool with the dark and tortured version of Peter Parker, much like Christopher Nolan's Bruce Wayne in the Dark Knight trilogy, and despite how lame the origin of Electro was handled, no one beats Jamie Foxx, and he saves that character. Wish I could say the same for Dane DeHaan's Harry Osborn / Green Goblin character, who really should have been Hobgoblin. But don't get me started on that. He basically comes off as a PO teenager with no real sense on how to handle a vast corporate empire that he inherits from his daddy, Norman Osborn, played by Chris Cooper, in the most throwaway role of his distinguished career. Mark Webb, what were you thinking? You got the bad psychologically deranged father from American Beauty in your hands and you just flush him down the toilet? In the first 10 minutes of the film, oh my God. But you never know, this is after all a superhero series, so the real Green Goblin, Chris Cooper, could be back to do some real freaking damage. Haha. Anyway, the action's great even in 3D, and as a matinee show, you could do worse. But 2 bits of advice here. One, if you're going to see this movie for Paul Giamatti's Rhino, you're going to be disappointed. That's because there's hardly any of that. Sorry, but I feel I should give you the heads up on that. And finally, there's only one mid-end credit scene, and it's not even a Spider-Man related one. It's a clip from the next flick that I'm reviewing here on NSFC Update, X-Men Days of Future Past. So don't bother staying to the very end. This actually ain't a Marvel film anyway, it's Sony. Okay, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, baby. Yeah, I'll probably go see number 3 and the proposed Sinister 6 film. Hinted at in this one.
Spider-Man, Spider-Man, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Wealth and fame, he's ignored. Action is his reward to him.
Okay.
Wherever there's a pain, you'll find Spider-Man.
That's right, baby. No Sentinel can beat the Wolverine. Oh, yeah. Now on the other claw, X-Men Days of Future Past rocked. Holy cow, was this a crazy comic book superhero movie? I'm giving this one a red giant. Actually, I would give it a supernova if it weren't for some forgivable issues that I'll get to in a moment. But first, here's all that's good about X-Men Days of Future Past. If you recall, the mid-credit scene in The Wolverine is going through security at an airport when he is met by his old enemy Magneto. Wolverine, aka Logan, is not happy to see him, but can't do anything about it because Mags paralyzes him with his power to control metal, like Logan's adamantium skeleton. Anyway, Magneto tells Logan that human forces are building a weapon that will destroy the mutants, and he needs Wolverine's help. Wolverine asks, "Why should I trust you?" And that's when everything around the two of them comes to a stop. Magneto releases Logan. Logan realizes that only one man can stop all time. That's the ostensibly deceased Professor X, or Charles Xavier. And the professor does roll up to Logan, and Logan asks, "How is this possible?" And the professor says, "You're not the only one with gifts." And that's it until now with X-Men Days of Future Past. So here we are, 10 years later, and all hell is broken loose. There are these mutant-killing robots called the Sentinels that can adapt to any mutant power, making them virtually indestructible. And not only do they target mutants, but humans who could produce mutant children or grandchildren. So mutants and humans try to fight them, but the Sentinels are unbeatable, and it's almost totally lost for our heroes. There's only one play left. Send one of them back in time to stop the war before it even begins. And who do they send? But my boy, Wolverine! Actually, it makes sense. He ages real slowly, so he would be in good shape back in 1973 for the mission. And he heals super fast, so he can physically survive the journey back in time. Now, it gets really complicated from this point on. The X-Men in the future are Professor X, Iceman, Kitty Pryde, Storm, Blink, and Bishop, to name a few. The guys and one lady in the past are young Professor X, young Magneto, Beast, Quicksilver, and Mystique, and it's the last one that is the crux of the story. Mystique, aka Raven, with her shape-shifting powers, is what will give the Sentinels their unbeatable uber powers in the future. Also, Raven's misguided actions set into motion the events that will lead to the creation of the Sentinels to begin with. So, it's imperative that the young crew find her and prevent her from doing what she does. But it ain't that easy. Charles has checked out of the X-Men business altogether after the events of the 2011 film X-Men First Class, and Magneto, aka Eric Lencher, is locked up under the Pentagon. It gets crazier from here, you can believe it! The key to all of this, of course, is Logan to guide Charles back to his true calling as leader of the X-Men, and that comes with a price. I gotta tell you, though this film is a little light on the hand-to-hand action, combat action that we saw in the Wolverine, Hugh Jackman's character does a truly amazing job in a different capacity as mentor to the bitter and defeated young Charles. There are scenes in this film where I really got choked up. So, step one, getting the band back together. That is Charles, Eric, Beast aka Hank McCoy, and Raven. But it gets all messed up very quickly. I gotta tell you though, there are some scenes in this movie that really blew my mind. The best one being Quicksilver's big jailbreak scene and the Jim Croce tune that he listens to while doing it. Director Bryan Singer definitely gets X-Men, no question about it. And it's good that he's back in the driver's seat with these films. However, he had some real big plot holes, or I should say plot holes, to fill, and unfortunately this movie doesn't quite get them all. Simply, it can't. The X-Men film universe and the timeline is pretty messed up with inconsistencies and contradictions. I can't even go into all of them here. There's actually a website that does, though, xcontinuity.blogs.com. Anyway, suffice it to say that with so many characters, past and future, and so many moving pieces, and the story, it's a miracle that it works as well as it does. There's a final showdown in the future with the all-powerful Sentinels, while there's also a lot of prototype mecha Sentinels doing their thing as all hell breaks loose in Nixon's Washington, D.C., and there are a lot of young Charles and Eric going back and forth with their differences, and yet it's so nice to see the old Charles and Eric working together despite all that has happened to pull their friendship apart. Now, I'm going to talk about Jennifer Lawrence's performance as Mystique. She's the it girl right now, so I don't blame the producers wanting to make her one of the headliners of the film. That's cool. However, her character's qualities don't quite fit with the story. Sure, she can shapeshift, but she can't really adopt mutant powers like Anna Paquin's Rogue can. But since it's J-Law's time, I guess poor Rogue's footage will stay on the cutting room floor until the Blu-ray of X-Men Days of Future Past. That being said, they all did a great job. I love anything with Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen in it, and I've been following James McAvoy's rising career for a while now, and I don't know where Michael Fassbender came from, but he's awesome! Even in that bit of a train wreck Prometheus. All in all, it's a great addition to the X-verse. But I think there should have been one more movie in between First Class and this one to set up the back and forth between the timelines. There's way too many time gaps, like 10 years between the events in X-Men First Class and the 1973 part of X-Men Days of Future Past, and a lot of unexplained events like how Charles managed to come back from being vaporized by Jean Grey / Dark Phoenix in X-Men Last Stand. I kind of get how he did it, but we should have had a bit more explanation on that. I think they were kind of taking on a bit too much all in one movie, but I can see that with one more of these retro X-Men films lined up, that is X-Men Apocalypse, they had to cut to the chase, and here in the second of this new trilogy, but we're gonna get another Killer Wolverine movie before then, and no one beats Wolverine! But there are a lot of chestnut moments in this movie that's worth the price of admission. I'm a big X-Men movie fan, so I'm all in. Oh, and remember, stay until after the credits. Trust me on this. Damn claws! And now for what's coming up. Really, there's only one thing to tell you about here. I'm going to San Diego Comic-Con, baby! Yeah! That's right, I'm doing a special issue of Nick's Sci-Fi Corner at this year's San Diego Comic-Con. It's gonna be awesome! My cameraman Dan and I are gonna do 5 crazy days at the end-all be-all of sci-fi, fantasy, comics, cosplay, pop culture conventions! Oh my god! We're even gonna be there for the preview night. I'm calling this special episode NSFC at SDCC, and it's gonna be filled with surprises and insane, awesome stuff that you won't believe. I've even got friends coming down from Hollywood and Denver to join me on NSFC at SDCC. I'm tweeting and Facebooking as much as possible, and while I'm out there, be sure to follow me on Twitter at hashtag NSFC2001, and on Facebook at the newly created Nick Sci-Fi Corner page. And when I get back, I'll put the show up on as soon as possible, so stay tuned on the social media sites to know when. It'll be broadcast here on Denim TV and on YouTube. It's going to be a great summer for NSFC, baby! And finally, coming in late fall, the third crazy regular episode of Nick's Sci-Fi Corner. I'm calling this issue number 3, Stop, Rock, and Roll! And look for the Big G to make a guest appearance. And that's all we have time for on this edition of NSFC Update. And remember, keep on rocking the sci-fi world!